That's going to basically involve the land development code, the land development ordinance, the subdivision ordinance, the flood damage prevention ordinance, and the minimum housing standards, which are in the building code. And the proposal at this point is to move to an arrangement where you have a unified development code. So all these codes go into the same place. And it's just a challenge that has stemmed from the early days of planning where there was a separation between subdivision and zoning, which never made much sense to me. And most communities are moving now to what we call a unified development code. So this first phase is an attempt to identify what it is that the board wants to take on when we get to the drafting phase, to phase two. There are a lot of issues, there are a lot of opinions, and we'll have a process for gathering those opinions and funneling essentially them to you so that you can decide what it is you're going to take on when we get to the second phase. There's a keyboard. Oh, okay, very good. So the primary objective here, as I said, was to identify the subject matter that will be addressed during the rewrite process. We want to summarize the scope of the revisions that you want to take on in this first process, in this first phase. So the idea here is to hear from the community and ultimately from you in a few months. This is what we want to attack. This is the scope of the issue. These may be our initial thoughts about this issue. So again, you're scoping that second phase correctly, number one. You have a realistic schedule, and you have a good public information process to associate with it. And there's no debate or not too much debate about what will and will not be taken on. We're going to talk more about the public outreach process, but what will come out of this process is a summary, and we're going to touch on this in a minute, a summary memo, about 15 to 20 pages, that summarizes and organizes the topics that you want to take on during the UDO rewrite. We'll also put together a public outreach plan that can be used during the rewrite process itself, because that's an important piece. Try to. So this is a detailed, this screen details what this first phase involves. It basically is a scope that includes first phase is project initiation, which of course is a lot of document review, and then what we're doing over the next 2 days, which are touring the community, the town, extraterritorial jurisdiction, et cetera, meeting with your staff, meeting with the town board, of course, planning board, the UDO steering committee, and then conducting a public outreach and input session tomorrow night. Backing up a step, the UDO steering committee, as you know, at this point is 2 members of this board, 2 members of the planning board, and then staff also participating in a technical support type of position. So that's what we do the next 2 days. So this is the people, these are the folks we want to hear from and ourselves become more acquainted with the community. So deliverables, as I said, it's an inventory of the matters to be addressed during the rewrite itself. We typically arrange these by subject matter. If we're really ahead of the game, we can start to organize these by section of the code. Just kind of depends on how far along and how concrete you want to get during this phase. My expectation is we'll do it by subject matter. We'll include a brief description of each topic, as I said, and if there's any input into where you want to go with that topic, we can go ahead and put that in. Again, just establishing that foundation as we start to draft. When we get to the drafting process, there are 3 drafts. The first one will basically be an opportunity for staff to make sure we got the technical aspects right, and then we'll bring that draft to the public and to this board as really the first draft to get exposure to policy considerations and feedback and that sort of thing. Once we'll be back to present that and to meet with you, and I suspect the planning board as well, the subcommittee, and then once you're happy with that and you've given us your input, we'll finalize that, come back and meet with you, and start talking about phase 2 at that point based on what you've adopted to that point. This just gives you an idea of what results from this process. This is a diagnostic that we just did for Forest Acres, South Carolina. You can see there how it outlines and we cover each topic, and that should give you a framework as you start the drafting process. An important thing I want to touch on here. We have found, we've been doing this for many years, that the thing that becomes most unwieldy in these has nothing to do or has very little to do with the subject matter. That we can tackle, that we know how to deal with. They usually become unwieldy because of the review process and not doing a phase 1 like we're talking about. So there's argument throughout the process, well, we were going to do this. No, we're not going to do that. We settle that at the beginning, and then we have a process for reviewing documents that come in, and then also a sort of a decision-making hierarchy. Because at some point, where we're poised with our pen to write a piece of code, There'll be conflicting opinions sometimes, or more than one opinion anyway, and we'll need somebody to say, put this in the draft, and we'll process it on through as it gets to the board. So we'll deliver our work product to the town planner. She'll process that. Whoever's going to review that initial draft in the community, whether it's staff, the board, the subcommittee, et cetera, and then she'll consolidate all those comments, reconcile comments that are in conflict, telling us again, here's how we want to approach it. And once we've completed that, we'll begin the next draft. I said, you know, there are 3, and schedule the next set of meetings and keep the project moving that way. If there's input that comes throughout the process, we'll provide Michelle's number at the end to her. We'd like that, or into the community, we'd like that to go to her, and she can summarize it and feed it to us, and that keeps us from getting phone calls down in Charleston from different people and that kind of thing, so everybody knows where it's going to the same person. But what I want to emphasize is at the end of the day, at the end of this process, of course, what ends up on that list and the nature of that list will be up to the board. So. Okay, and then the final phase, just summing up the meetings I touched on as I was going through. This is our kickoff, of course. Then we'll present that staff review draft to the board at a date to be determined. We'll talk about what we estimate those dates to be at the end of tonight. And then, importantly, we'll confirm, you know, sort of a town-specific public outreach process that works for you, achieves what you want to achieve in terms of public outreach and input. And we'll talk, again, more about that in a moment as well. Okay, so I'm going to ask Kelly Cousineau to come up, and she's going to walk you through. And Madam Mayor, happy to take any questions at this point if you like. What Kelly's going to do is start going through the initial issues we've heard about, and this becomes more of a listening session and us getting feedback from you. So if there's any questions you have now, I'm happy to answer.
Well, let's see if we can break that up if we can, because it seems like a lot of data-rich information. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Smith about the presentation that he just put together in front of us? Commissioner LaPiccolo?
No question.
All right. Commissioner Gilligan?
No question.
All right. Commissioner Cooper?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Okay. So starting tomorrow,
Yes, sir.
you'll be meeting with,
Oh, you're okay. Tomorrow we're meeting with the UDO subcommittee. We're meeting with the planning board, and then we're having a public input session tomorrow night. In the morning will be our chance for Michelle to drive us around the community and to tour the community.
okay. But on the 2 board members, 2 planning members,
Mm-hmm.
and then staff, what members of the staff will you be on this
On the
committee?
subcommittee?
Yes.
Michelle, you're probably better to answer that. Or
Michelle?
you, the staff member.
Yeah, Kyle, as he's available.
Kyle and Michelle is who we're
Kyle and
referring to. It's
Michelle?
planning staff, yes, sir.
Okay. But then eventually you're gonna go around and then have input from the community.
Correct.
Okay. Why is there not someone from the community also on this committee?
We didn't assemble the committee, I'm not
I
sure.
assembled the committee.
You assembled the committee?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No further questions.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. All right. Commissioner Oliver?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Spiegler?
Thank you very much. That was really useful to see all that information. Thank y'all for coming up all the way up here. So to clarify, our point of contact for this project will be Kelly, right? Your name's Kelly.
No, I'm sorry, Michelle,
Or
as the planning on the planning staff.
okay, so we will communicate with Michelle, who will communicate with Kelly. Is going to
Correct.
be our
Or
point
me.
of contact.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's our suggestion, is there's one point of contact with the town, and then we have one funnel, so to speak, coming to us.
Thank you. And I would also like to see somebody from the community on the UDO committee as well.
All right. Kelly, it's up to you.
Thank you. Well, as Tyson mentioned, this is really the part of the meeting where we want to start getting your feedback on the issues that will be addressed in the Phase 2 rewrite. So we've had some conversations with Kyle and Michelle, and we've also taken a look at, Michelle has a plan implementation matrix where she's compiled all of the town's plans and implementation recommendations and identified a number of those that would be ideally implemented through the UDO. So we've started to put together our list of topics that would likely be addressed in the development of the UDO. The UDO has already been updated, or the land development ordinance has already been updated for compliance with state statute, the 160D, although there have been some changes in the last legislative session, so we will review those and make sure that the UDO is up to date. Some other issues: document formatting and organization, just making it more user-friendly, adding tables, graphics, making it easier to read. Modernize the uses and use regulations. A couple uses in particular we've talked about are looking at different housing types in appropriate areas, and how to address, or whether to address, short-term rentals. Context-sensitive infill is another big issue. Parking, exterior lighting, buffers, and landscaping, those are kind of typical zoning topics that we update and address. Building design might be something to look at in certain districts or geographic areas of the town. Environmental impact statement requirements and criteria is something that we could take a look at, whether it's something that you all want to keep requiring and add some criteria to it. We can take a look at that. And of course, resilience and flooding sort of intertwines with all of the issues in both zoning and subdivision, so that'll be a big part of what we look at as well. Some other issues: subdivision standards such as block length, pedestrian bicycle connectivity, tree and maritime forest preservation and protection, open space preservation and new development. What does that look like? How much is required in new developments? Amenities, that sort of thing. Shoreline stabilization, that feeds back into the resilience and flooding issue I mentioned. Also, uses and development standards in the non-intensification zone. And then stormwater management, of course, is another big issue, and you have things like impervious surface coverage, low impact development, green stormwater infrastructure. So that's what we've heard so far. We expect we will continue to add to this list after tonight and tomorrow and keep building on it. And so this is where we'd like to start getting your input. Is there anything from the list, anything you would add to the list, any clarifications you want to make? And these are just some questions to sort of get the wheels turning, thinking about what's going on in your neighborhood, what type of issues are important to you and your community members that you know of. Do the town's current regulations are you getting the type of development that you want to see? And if not, what are your expectations, so that we can start to think about how we could incorporate some new ideas into the UDO. And then moving kind of away from the standards portion of it to the development review process. Do you all find that effective? Is it efficient? Does it take a long time? Is there anything that you would change about the process itself? We're here to hear your feedback.
Okay. All right, Commissioner LaPiccolo, do you have any questions or feedback for Kelly?
No, I have a question.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Gilligan?
I do have feedback. And so to zoom out a little bit, I just want to say that I'm really in support of developing and adopting some regulations that advance our community values, vision, and goals. Also objectives found in the 2023 Comprehensive and CAM Land Use Plan. And I think no matter how much public engagement we have through the current process, our public engagement in that plan in response to the surveys is tremendous, and there is a better response rate to those surveys than we've had in many, many years. So for example, a lot of surveys that go out, like just a couple hundred people, we got, well over 1,000, if not a few thousand people for those surveys. So I just want us to keep those surveys in mind, and I think that they are still of value, and they're reflected in the values and the vision and the goals of that plan. So I think we can bake that plan heavily into what we're doing now, and I think that's also your intent.
Yep, that's correct.
And I also want to see this process be conducted through a lens of inclusiveness, thinking about all of our community members. Some neighborhoods or streets their voices may be underrepresented, or maybe they don't show up to meetings, but they have issues in their neighborhoods that could be addressed external partnerships or content experts that we have access to when appropriate for technical assistance in prioritizing some of these things or in getting to the weeds of developing the ordinance language themselves. I know Sarah and I have a lot of those contacts professionally and would be, glad to bring some of those to the table if you all are already there, which I'm sure that you are. And some of those sources of content or expertise, of course, we've got lots of information in our BOC plans, which sounds like Michelle has done a good job with her matrix. I love the fact that you made a matrix for that. We have a brand new resilience exchange in North Carolina that Sarah can speak more to. We have the Green Growth Toolbox in North Carolina, a climate plan, the NC Heat Action Toolkit. So a lot of different plans that we can look to help us achieve what we want. Specifically in terms of the topical areas, I think my comments would land under the topics. I didn't write down the broad topics, but I'm sure you can nest my comments under those topics. Concerning the floodplain, I would like to see a reassessment of the freeboard. I would like to see an increase in freeboard. In terms of some design and construction topics, addressing adjacent flooding impacts due to the building of properties with fill and that water coming onto the existing home's property is a big concern, active concern in the community. Maybe look at property owners and their ability to build covered docks. Maybe we should relook at that issue for impeding citizen view and also increase hazards during storms. Also look at more resilient dock building materials and methods. I manage a reserve right across the creek from Beaufort, and during our last cleanup we got 135,000 pounds of wood that came from dock and shore infrastructure, and that ends up damaging the marsh over there. So it's actually more of a habitat restoration when we take it off, but it's pretty expensive. And it does cause a burden to the taxpayers because even though we got federal funds to do it, we all pay those taxes. Workforce housing, of course, if we can look at requiring a certain percentage of housing that addresses the needs of, X% of the average income. Would like to look at some vegetation issues with tree preservation, not just for aesthetics, but water absorption and heat mitigation. So related to the resilience topic that you brought up. Also would like to look at bigger communities or bigger developments and if they should be required to achieve X% of native vegetation. Also for building our new town campus or any other town facilities, maybe we should hold ourselves to even a higher standard than that and really try to maximize our use of native plants to effectively absorb water. We might want to look at some affordable housing ideas, maybe in some of our higher density areas where we would accept that kind of development. Do we want to allow a higher structure of that so we can maximize our green space and our tree areas and our common spaces? I have the same question about the short-term rentals. Do we want to address it? I would like to see where that legislation is at the General Assembly level because I'm not sure where it is now. If it doesn't look like it's going to move forward really fast, then maybe we should move forward with some language on that where we can. And of course, I think we're still wanting to define our outdoor bar and business. And I have a lot more to add, but I'm also on the steering committee, so I'll save my additional comments. And my colleagues speak, so.
It's more to come.
More to come.
All right, Commissioner Cooper.
You should have led off with that. So that way she wouldn't have to try to take all these notes, knowing that you already on this committee, she can get a list for you. But I appreciate that. And I would just want to piggyback on everything that she said, maybe highlight a couple other things, especially the environmental. There's no doubt that we need to have that included. Short-term housing, being able verbal and all those type of rental things, neighborhood involvement, on the back end beyond, Marbury Street. That's where pretty much the people feel disconnected from the town. So if you can venture out that way and talk to people, you probably get an earful. Okay. And housing, of course, housing, as she stated, is a need not only in this town, but every town in the U.S. is trying to figure out some type of way to provide more housing, and they don't really like to use that word affordable, because affordable is whatever you can afford. So affordable, we had to play on that. In terms of the legislation on about short-term rental, they're not they don't table that. So it's gonna have to be the towns themselves to really deal with and put something in place to deal with short-term rental. But our legislation, they don't really want to touch it. So it's gonna be up to us. Sorry, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Oliver.
There are no subjects that have been checklisted by those that speak before me with which I do not agree. There are a couple that I would add to it. One generality is that we have a unique character and charm within the town of Beaufort, and somehow we need to clearly define that and protect it aggressively. Likewise, we have a number of property owners whose property rights we need to be very careful to protect. And that has been impacted somewhat by gentrification, and we need not hide from that, and we need not to support it to the diminishing of those who have ties and own property across our town. And we're seeing that. And I think we need to be very sensitive to it. All the others have been already listed and would only be repetitious, such things as workforce housing, short-term rentals, et cetera. I won't repeat the list because you've already got them. Thank you.
You appreciate that, right, Kelly?
I knew you would.
Commissioner Speaker.
Well, I'm gonna probably repeat some things, so excuse me, but I just wanna say again, thank you. This was a really helpful presentation. Is it possible for us to get a copy of these slides?
Absolutely.
Okay, so we can kind of continue to think over these questions that you've given us. This is very helpful. I especially really liked your list of topic areas, and it seems like y'all have a lot of really great experience, especially working in the Keys, working in Charleston. That's gonna be really helpful, obviously, for our small coastal town. I want to say that Michelle is an awesome resource, so I'm very excited to be able to work with y'all through Michelle. She's going to be great, I know, for this part of our town's future. So really excited that Michelle is our person working on this, and I just want to say very excited to work with y'all on this. So I'm going to repeat some of the things that Commissioner Gillikin said, because I'm not on the UDO committee, so I want to make sure that I'm heard here. And I just want to say that I think she pointed out, but two of our really, really important plans are Beaufort Comprehensive and Camel Land Use Plan. So we just adopted that last year, along with the Resilient Beaufort Plan in 2023. That was sort of a sister plan where we worked with the North Carolina Division of Coastal Management. That was funded through the North Carolina Resilient Coastal Communities Program. And like Commissioner Gillikin said, we had amazing public engagement in that process, and those plans are excellent. And so I think my goal is making sure that what is in those plans, the Camel Land Use Plan and Resilient Beaufort, is translated into our code updates. I think that's very important, and that's what we're working towards. Again, I think, and y'all kind of laid this out, the communication through this process is going to be really, really important. So that's, communication with staff, communication with the Board of Commissioners, communication with the community, and knowing that we have a point person in Michelle that we can go to. That's very good. We have that expectation set up front. That's very good. So I think what's really important so we're a small coastal town and we are already being impacted by climate change, sea level rise, flooding. As you know, Charleston is, the Keys are, all of the East Coast. So that's going to be really, really important that we look at these code updates with a lens of resilience on everything, because my generation, my son's generation, we are being impacted by that right now. And so we need to be proactive and think about future conditions in Beaufort and not what's happening now or what happened in the past. So, you know, your work that you're doing with the city of Charleston, I think that's going to be really instructive for us to see how I know they're a much bigger coastal city, but to be able to take what they're doing and apply it here will be really good. We have some, as Commissioner Gillikin said, we have some excellent tools in the state. We have a really new tool that just came out about a month ago, the North Carolina Resilience Exchange, and that was developed by many partners, but was led by the North Carolina Office of Recovery and Resilience. And we also have the North Carolina Green Growth Toolbox, as Commissioner Gillikin said. And what I think would be great is both of those tools offer free presentations by their staff. I think it would be a great opportunity for community staff and board of commissioners to learn more about how that can be implemented in these code updates. I think another thing that I want to really stress too is we want to see that socially vulnerable residents are going to be given support and protection, because if we're only as resilient as our most vulnerable community member, and so we can't just plan for resilience for parts of our community. We have to plan for resilience for all of our community, and that was really a big emphasis in the Resilient Beaufort Plan as well, that socially vulnerable and historically underrepresented groups are involved. And so I think we also need to figure out, we did a good job in the Campbell Land Use Plan update, but the community engagement and especially engaging socially vulnerable populations, that's going to be really important in this process as well to get a product that we want. So again, I'll just say community engagement, communication, those are really keys in the process, as y'all know. Like Commissioner Gillikin said, being able to leverage those external partnerships and content experts, especially here in North Carolina if we need them, look at model ordinances, that sort of stuff for things that are maybe, you know, a little bit forward thinking that maybe haven't been done everywhere before but have been done some places. How can we not reinvent the wheel and look at what other small coastal communities like ours have been doing? I don't know if I heard this in your list or not, but one thing that's really important to me, and y'all probably know, is sidewalks. I want to make sure that we especially emphasize and encourage sidewalks everywhere in town, all new developments, right, Kyle? Everybody knows that's a big point of mine. Sidewalks, bike lanes, all of those great things, walkability, bikeability. I'd also like to look at how we can incorporate holistic stormwater analysis, so not just looking at the impact right at the development or adjacent to the development, but how is it going to impact the stormwater management of the whole community. Another thing on my list is, and Kyle might laugh at this, public hearing notification requirements. I'd like to relook at those. Right now they are required within 100 feet and 10 to 25 days. I'd like to look at broadening both the geography and the amount of notification time for those. Also, looking at water quality, so thinking about do we put limits on pesticides and herbicides for the impacts of water quality? I'd really like to consider that. And then just sort of, and y'all are probably very expert at this, but the final product, it would be really great for it to be, the framework to be user-friendly, right? That it can be searchable, that it includes charts and graphics as appropriate so that it is usable and we can easily reference it and look through it. I think that's all I've got right now. Thank you very much.
All right, is there any further comments from anybody else on the board? Might have been sparked to think about a few things after the list that we've heard. We're all good? Good. Yeah, anything, no follow-up? All right.
I do have one more thing that
Sure.
we'd love to get your input on. Tyson mentioned this earlier, or something to get y'all thinking about for Module 2. We heard from a couple of commissioners about the importance of public engagement and public outreach. So what does that look like for Beaufort? You all mentioned surveys, may be appropriate to do those again for UDO development. Project website, do you want to have online commenting features? Can people just email in comments? Do you want to post the documents and the drafts online? So we'll be looking for your feedback on just some ideas on what might work best for the community for public outreach for the second phase, for the drafting phase.
Will you want us to email you that, or would you like to have it now?
Either way,
Okay.
either way. It's just it'll be a component of the assessment that we'll provide. So it will go into that document. So, but tonight it's not critical if it's something that you all want to think about the best approach there as well.
We are not too
Cool, this
tired.
is
You
early.
have not met
This
us.
is early.
This is early for us.
I have a banana in the bag. We're good to go.
Bring it on.
All right.
Yeah. More public input sessions vary in times because there are people that work that can't make it and some that can. I see there's one lined up, but definitely like to see more. Definitely using social media, that's a platform. The best thing would be to even go door to door in some cases. We're a small community and we've got several commissioners on this board that have walked it before, have we not?
Yeah, we not.
Yeah, we not. And that will probably get more engaging, because sometimes when you put that information out, sometimes people may not really make it that relevant. But if you come to their door, it might help a little bit too. And also may be able to help engage what it is that we're doing. You know, sometimes, you know, we're put it out there and we've got a room full of people that understand what we're doing, but we have to pull in those that don't understand what we're doing and still have a stake in it. So that would be something to put out there. Surveys are nice, they're a little impersonal. That's all I have to say. John, do you have, Commissioner Lopiccolo, do you have any engagement ideas that you'd like to share?
I'm sorry, I don't, I've had a little, it's been breaking up a little bit, so I'm having a little bit hard time hearing you.
Okay.
But I have a lot more to share tomorrow for sure. I know we have a lot of meetings ahead of us.
Mm-hmm.
I have a long list here of things that I've been, needed to talk about. But I think, like I said, as we get into the smaller sessions with the planning board and also with with our small subset, for the UDO, I think we'll be able to really tackle some of these things. It sounds like we're all in the same, place here. We all have specific things we want to see. I know for myself, coming into some of the designs and plats that we presented to the town, I'd love to see things where we come in and we look at these designs and these new developments that come in, and all of us look at it and think, there's no problem with this. We want to move right ahead and let's go ahead and have this approved by the town because it fulfills a lot of the guidelines and standards that we like with trees and open space and appropriate sidewalks and lot coverage and so forth. So that we're not struggling, I think, with it. And I hope that that this group that we're hiring, it sounds like they're very, very well versed in this, and they've got lots of experience. I hope they really can help guide us on all of these things that we collectively, as a board, have really, I think, come across in our times as commissioners, as well as on the planning board, and we can put this all together and make it so that it makes everyone's job a lot easier, and it makes a little less contentious meetings and with our community, because I think we all have similar aspirations for our town. We do have this character of Beaufort, as Bucky said, that we want to preserve, and we don't want to lose that. So I'm looking forward to the next several days and the next few weeks, months with working with this group. So I'm very optimistic, and I can't wait. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Gilligan, any engagement ideas?
Yes, for the CAMA plan, I think one of the things that made the response rate so high is that we thought don't go to public meetings, are not sitting on their laptop at night looking at social media, or maybe a friend sends them a link to a survey that they can't answer. We actually got on the ground, and we being, I think, Mayor Harker, you did some door-to-door. As a part of the Eastern Carteret Collaborative, I stood outside at maybe Loaves and Fishes in the shopping center and kind of intercepted people as they came in. There was also somebody from the Eastern Carteret Collaborative stationed at the Boys and Girls Club because a lot of parents drop their kids off there. So I think that face-to-face, in-person contact, like Mayor Harker articulated, is very important in getting good representation. You know, a lot of folks just do things differently than the rest of the folks that are doing it online. And a lot of folks just can't show up for a public meeting, or maybe it's uncomfortable to do so. So I think that's really important, and I understand that you have a limited scope in your contract, so, I mean, I know I would be willing to help, and maybe even the Eastern Carteret Collaborative or a group like that might be willing to help, so I just wanna acknowledge, I know that you have a certain scope for phase one, but maybe, in phase two, that could be broadened with, in the contract or with the help of partners.
And we have a full community that's itching to go to work, so don't worry about, you will have no loss for hands. Commissioner Cooper?
No, I'm good.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Oliver?
Kyle, help me. There's a study going on with stakeholders now that was generated. Is that part of this function? There's a group reaching out now, talking to certain stakeholders in our community. Is that part of this activity? Commerce Department, et cetera, et
Oh,
cetera?
the Main Street?
Totally separate.
Okay, will that data and that be tied into this?
It can be, because that should be wrapped up, hopefully September or October.
Right.
So,
That's my point, is just to check that box if you, thank you. Sorry to wake you up, but but I recently got interviewed and that's why I was curious.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Speaker?
You told me.
I think it's been well said, the importance of community outreach, and I agree. If y'all need help going door to door, we have a great community that can go do that. I would volunteer for that as well. I think a combination of everything that you have suggested up there, I think that's great. I do think surveys are good. I had people actually ask me, hey, I can't be at the meeting tomorrow night. Is there a survey? And I said, yeah, that'd be great. I said we would find out. So I think surveys are good. I think door to door is great. Like Commissioner Gilligan said, Loaves and Fishes, you know, the grocery store, right? I think all of those are really great options. Yep. So yeah, thank you.
Are there any local community events in the fall that would be a good place to put up a booth?
Oh,
Probably 18.
pirate invasion,
That might be an idea.
There are community events
community
every
events.
week.
Right.
This is Beaufort, we're very active, so pick a week and there's something going on. We even have the farmer's market, which is also a good resource. And that does go on for some time that we could actually tap in. And you can even set up a booth there for information to disseminate that. And they're very good about working with people who are wanting to come in.
Excuse me.
Go ahead.
So is that an event that you give you cross section of the community that participates?
Yes, it is well received throughout the community. It's actually a county-wide thing, but people in our community definitely visit our market. And it's held on Saturdays, and it's from 9 to 1. And that's always a good time to have somebody out there. But there's a variety of events that you could tap into, and a variety of organizations that will be at your beck and call to help disseminate this information. Right, Plastic Free BOC? Hey.
Judd had his hand up for something.
Yeah. So we do have a lot of resources. We're more than happy to tap you into those folks and get them involved when it's time to do those engagement pieces. They'll be more than happy to. Like I said, our community is itching to get to work.
Excellent.
Yeah. Any further questions? Do you have any further questions of us?
I don't, but I will turn it back to Tyson for the next steps.
Can I circle back to a couple topics?
Sure.
And again, if tonight's not the night, we'll get you another time, but just, that's why we're here, we might get more from you on a few things. Short-term rentals, that came up a few times, but I didn't quite hear much. Like, give us a little background on how that's happening and.
Well, short-term rentals are happening.
Right.
So just like with any other community, we just wanted to be able to protect the community sense
Okay.
of that, of neighborhood. Because when
Okay.
you have people coming and going, it does affect that. So we've been dealing with that, just like with every other community has been dealing with it.
Okay.
But would like to have some regulations on that. Now, most of it is nuisance related. If you're gonna regulate, make sure your trash is in, make sure everybody's behaving, so on and so forth. But it also could mean that it could take away some inventory for housing, not necessarily affordable housing. I'm not saying anything that's short-term rental would be affordable if they put it on the market long-term. But it does take away for long-term rentals. That will build that sense of community. We need to be able to have people stay here to create those relationships. But I'm going to defer to the commissioners to see what their impression of short-term rental is in our community, how it affects it. Commissioner LaPiccolo, you have a comment to make about short-term rental?
Are you asking my comment on short-term rentals, my position on short-term rentals, or just any particular?
Well, Mr. Smith wants to get our
Any
impression.
input, yeah.
Any input on
Just
short-term rental.
context, at least, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Beaufort is a tourist community, and we've been dealing with short-term rentals here for quite some time. I don't necessarily have a huge problem with short-term rentals. I think there is a place for them. If you feel like property owners do have a right to use their property as a short-term rental, but I'd like to make sure that adjacent property owners are not, negatively impacted by those short-term rentals to the point where there's, the number of people occupying the home is more than a certain number per bedroom, the number of cars that are parked in front of the home or on the front yard of the home, and not more than a certain number for occupants in the home per bedroom. Like to see that garbage is picked up, and that noise ordinances are also we're looking into that as well. The ordinances are followed. It's a difficult situation, and I think it's something the board as a whole is going to have to come together with, because as the state has shown and the state's proven, there's not it's not a one size fits all. And I think where it might be more a better fit in certain parts of our community versus others, as far as the downtown versus the adjacent our perimeter of the town, or how do we allow newer developments to come in and encourage them maybe not to have these short-term rentals. So I think we've got a lot to talk about here, but there are some basics that I think I'd like to tackle regarding short-term rentals.
Thank you. Commissioner Gilligan.
I would say, I think that whole house short-term rentals are more of a concern for me and for some community members. Some of the ones that have just one room in their house, a lot of times the owner is there and there's not really a big impact to neighbors as there is with some of the whole house rentals. I read the state legislation that Commissioner Cooper just said might have been tabled or is not moving anywhere, and I did like a few elements of that about having some safety requirements and fire extinguishers and things like that, just real basic things. And also even considering how far away the property manager or owner has to be. So, if they're staying in Italy for the whole year, they live in Italy part of the year, do we want them managing it all the way from there?
Right.
And then, of course, the management of parking, but I'll get into more nitty gritty, but I do think there's a lot of opportunity for improvement there.
Commissioner Cooper.
Yeah, well, it is a problem here in Beaufort. In fact, we have there's one street that I know of in terms of walking it, that there are more short-term rental in a 2-block area on this one particular street than there is permanent residents. So that is a problem. And like I say, when you get into short-term rentals, that is taking pretty much of a house off the market for maybe a long-term individual who may wants to rent, or maybe even in terms of that individual putting it on the market for sale. But we have to find some type of common means. And like I said, I don't think the state wants to deal with it because it's some of the legislators probably do not want to get in terms of how telling a property owner what they can do with their property. And that might be an issue, even the issue here in terms of telling a property owner, well, you have it, but you can't do this with it. You know, so we have to try to find that common ground. But we have to do something, especially here in Beaufort. That's a big issue here in Beaufort, is that the restaurants around here, a lot of their employees live outside of Beaufort, Newport, New Bern, along the Atlantic Beach area. And so we have to be able to find a means for them to be able to have their employees to stay somewhere, because most time when you're in that capacity as a server at a restaurant, and I don't want to demean any individual none whatsoever, but sometimes their transportation is not reliable. And when their transportation not reliable, that means they got to call in and tell the boss, hey, I'm not going to be able to make it today. You know, but if they were here in Beaufort, they could bike to work. So.
All done?
Yes, sir.
Good,
I'm
okay,
sorry.
thank you. Commissioner Oliver?
I won't be, I'll try not to be repetitious, but we have no guidelines today. And in my opinion, it is a lot bigger element than we may realize at this table. But on the other hand, it is a very significant financial livelihood to those who participate in the industry. And I do think that we have to find a balance that is in the community's best interest.
Thank you.
Thank
Commissioner Spiegler?
Thank you, Commissioner Oliver. I agree with that. I think this is a really challenging issue. We probably need to find some balance. I would say it's really challenging for Beaufort, but we also know it's really challenging for, most small tourist towns across the country. And to my knowledge and my research, there haven't been a lot of great solutions. I mean, there's been a lot of things tried across the country, and there's really no one like, this is what we should do. However, if y'all are aware of some great resources or that ways that other small communities have kind of put some restrictions and balance that has worked, I think we would love to see that, because as you've heard, we understand how important this issue is, we understand how challenging it is, and we really want to do something to help find that better balance. And we'd really like to do it through this update, but I don't think any of us quite know exactly how to go about that. So, yeah.
There definitely have been things that have done differently in different places that have been effective, depending on what you mean by effective. If you mean protecting the housing stock, absolutely. If the minimum short-term rental period is 30 days, for example, that will absolutely affect the availability of longer-term rental units. In fact, I have that experience with the unit I own. And in Charleston, different situation where I live, you can have short-term rentals. I don't have one, but the owner has to be on site. In my neighborhood, there's some where it's more open, but in my neighborhood, the owner has to be on site. So one can do it. I have a duplex. One can do it, to your point, Mr. Oliver, but there's that limitation so that they're there if there's a complaint and that kind of thing. Okay, that's helpful.
Okay.
Anything else on short-term rentals for tonight? Or?
I think we're good for right now.
Okay, that
Yeah.
gives good sense. One other thing, and I'll move on here, but I thought it'd be good to get some feedback. Spiegel, I think you mentioned this, the stormwater, more broad than the site itself. What kind of development applications are raising that issue? Commercial?
Right. I think all of the above.
Okay.
We are developing very quickly here in Beaufort. We're losing a lot of pervious surface that is transforming into impervious surface. We also have, and I think y'all will get into this in your meetings tomorrow too, a lot of fill that's coming in. So that's impacting stormwater runoff and stormwater management. For example, in my neighborhood, there was a new development that was built behind my neighborhood, and they brought in fill, a lot of fill, and that has impacted the way the water runs off, not just in their neighborhood, right, not the new development, but my neighborhood as well. So I think if we can take a more holistic look at stormwater and think about how it impacts our entire community, that will be very useful for us. Willing to hear what other commissioners have to say as well.
Oh, go ahead, Ms.
Well, Commissioner Piccolo, do you have anything to add to that? I'm not sure if you can hear.
I don't think I don't think he can.
So I guess the question was, what kind of stormwater concerns do we have? I have concerns regarding lot coverage. Currently now we have standards where our 20 lots are able to cover the lots completely. I'd like to see those standards change so that there's only a certain percentage that's allowed, and like we have for some of the other designations in our town. I'm concerned about backfill on lots when homes are torn down, lots are then backfilled, and that's the type of stormwater problems that creates. I'm concerned about larger lots in town possibly being split, homes being torn down, larger lots being split, and then the increase in coverage on the lots as a result of building multiple homes on those lots in our town. I think our trees are very important in our community. I think we need to look at our tree ordinances as well to make sure that we have appropriate coverage of trees. And then even, I know we're working in our stormwater plan to help with improved permeability on even possibly helping encouraging even driveways and so forth and any other structures to help increase permeability in our community. So yeah, those are some of the quick things I can think of right now regarding stormwater in our community and problems that we're seeing. We're seeing problems also with the larger developments coming in and creating issues as well. And it may not be direct issues where you can see those issues on the design plans from the surveyors and architects that are building it, but when you look at some of the impacts to the adjacent lots or adjacent homeowners in the community, they're pretty substantial. There are a lot of these communities have to be built up, and particularly for CAMA standards, leaving behind the adjacent properties that are left to deal with their own drainage, which may have been running, which they didn't have any plans because their lots were designed in such a way that the water was, running towards the back of the property where the new development was. So we need to be sensitive to that and possibly increase buffers. I think we also need to be a little bit more specific regarding our setbacks for buffers. I think we're a little bit vague in that in our current land development ordinance as well. And anyway, yeah. So this is some of the things I've been thinking about.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Gilligan?
To not be repetitious, I echo everything that Commissioner Stiegler and Commissioner LaPicola just mentioned, and just want to hammer home the importance of incentives for using BMPs, whether it be permeable pavement or non-paved driveways or rain gardens, and also holding the town accountable to when it develops its new municipal campus in the future, or any of the properties that we practices or BMPs that show that we really care about storm water going above and beyond. And, that's all I have for now.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Cooper, have any comments about stormwater?
No, I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Oliver?
I've got two other issues that I would challenge you on. The last time we expanded our sewer capacity, it cost us about $15 million, and we're still paying for it. Our sewer capacity is severely impacted by the amount of infiltration that comes from stormwater. I'd like to see us document the amount of sewer use that we genuinely can attribute to sanitary sewer needs. The remainder being infiltration, because frankly, despite the tremendous cost of correcting infiltration, I think it is less expensive and more efficient than expanding our sewer capacity to handle infiltration. And I would give that as a direct challenge to quantify that. The second thing that I would talk about is that I think we need to have a very frank, open discussion about enforcement. It's great to talk about new projects, but what are we doing about what we're doing today? And those are the two challenges that I'd add to your list.
Okay. On the first one, we're doing a precise, as you can get, assessment of what the I&I contribution is to the flow that's getting treated
Yep.
through infiltration. Okay. On the second piece, code enforcement is what I gather you're referring to.
And frankly, the good way to look at that is code enforcement of our current codes before you change them. Because without having adequate and proper and consistent enforcement, we can make all the rules in the world.
What's the code enforcement staff or personnel like now?
I'll leave that for you to find.
Okay. Okay. All right. Very good.
Okay,
We
Commissioner
cover
Steve?
stormwater.
I
Stormwater.
already went.
Yep.
You already read,
I'm
okay,
good,
that's right.
thank you.
let
You're
me-
done.
Done.
Congratulations.
It's only 7:12. Got plenty of time.
We have another 3 more hours. This
Yeah.
board's fresh, so do you have anything else?
Well, last thing, someone mentioned peer communities, and there are a ton of beautiful ones in the state. Are there other coastal communities or small communities that pop out when you think, we want to look like that, or you heard something they're doing that you'd like us to consider and look at?
We want them to look like Beaufort. Just want to say that.
Well, okay, understood. Right,
Okay.
right.
Commissioner Piccolo, any communities out there that you feel that Beaufort could benefit modeling?
Hell no.
Thank-
But I would like to explore design standards
Okay.
for our community, especially within the commercial districts. I do feel like it would be nice to have some design standards in our community in order to kind of reduce blight and reduce the appearance of just and I'd like to see some design standards. So I think we need to look into that as well. As far as any specific community, there's not any specific community. I think Beaufort has its own specific look and feel, and I think we are unique in that regard. I don't want to look like a cookie cutter type of community, but I also, when I talk about design standards, I also want to look like just a steel building community, or just a community of just, non-commercial, after commercial, just very plain, uncharacteristic building. So I'd like to see some type of design standard, an aesthetically pleasing design standard in our community that is very much of Beaufort and a Beaufort character. We've tried to help some of our designs of private developments. So the design standard for homes, I'd like to see something like that for the commercial district.
Thank you. Commissioner Gilligan?
So it's a county in South Carolina. I'm thinking it could be Jasper maybe, but you roll into the Walmart parking lot and you have to navigate live oak trees to find a parking spot.
Okay.
And I think that is fantastic. We have some very
You good?
But I do like the idea of planting, you know, natives and breaking up the atmosphere. And when you're in that county, you're driving down the road, or maybe even in Mount Pleasant as well, and some of these businesses are like kind of nested back in the
Right.
vegetation. And now with our mapping applications and the technology we have, we don't know where something is. You know, if you're a tourist or not from here, you can map it, and it doesn't have to be right in your face. So I like how some of those businesses just kind of blend into the landscape. I may not see that in my lifetime if we start putting oak trees in parking lots, because it takes a long time to grow, but we can leave that for future generations. So that would be my inspiration.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's a
thank
good point. Kelly used to work for the town of Mount Pleasant, and we're updating their code now, but you're talking about Highway 17 there as you go in from the
Yes.
north. Yeah, it's a good job. Big box stuff, you don't really see it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it doesn't stick out.
Okay.
Commissioner Cooper?
Well, my neighbor would love you about trees. Because every day I walk with my neighbor, he's always saying, "Are you guys planting more trees?" And like, we don't have a tree program right now. Well, you should get it, because he relates back to when Beaufort had one and planted a great deal of tree. Well, actually, they crept the crepe myrtles that you're talking about. Somehow somebody, I guess, thought that would be really nice, but he don't like them. But when I walk with him tomorrow morning, I'm gonna let him know that we may get a tree program back in Beaufort. But in terms of city, no, I mean, I would like for other people to be saying, "Oh, I would like to look like Beaufort," because we are unique, and I would like for us to continue that way and
Sure.
not be trying to replicate or duplicate what another town may look like.
Yeah.
But also like for us to be able to be friendly in terms of what we build in here, what we put in here for future generation, to be able to have somewhere to stay.
Yeah.
That's all I have, man.
Okay. Commissioner Oliver?
Water here.
I guess I'd checklist a couple things. There is a term that goes around about being Beaufortized. I mean, I wouldn't miss that. I wish I could define it for you. The second thing is, I would say that I support the entrance plan that we have, which is extremely detailed and could use some support as part of it. It's a good plan. Thank you.
A bit more Beaufortized, and I should clarify, I did not think the goal of anyone would be to change the character of Beaufort, but things like the parking lot and that kind of thing is what I think. You said Beaufortized, is that like in new developments? Tell me a bit more about what you meant by that.
If I could define it, well,
Is there positive?
you can come down and I'll show it to you.
Okay. Okay, very good.
Again, it comes back to charm and character,
Exactly.
history, and it unfortunately it does include architecture, which gets a little hairy, but I can pick it out and show you. I guess would be my and this group is very talented at doing that. You won't have any problem getting the message.
Okay, excellent.
So I will also second the tree program. So in addition to sidewalks, I love trees. Very supportive of preserving the trees we have and planting more trees. So yes, second that, third that. I will say, like you've heard, Beaufort is really unique. I will say though, I think to your question, there are some small coastal towns in North Carolina that are doing some good work in incorporating resilience into their plans, and maybe even a little bit more ahead than we are. So we could, and the ones that come to mind immediately are Pine Knoll Shores, which is right down the road, Town of Duck up in the Outer Banks, Nag's Head up in the Outer Banks. Swansboro's got some good stuff going on too. I believe Bald Head Island is actually updating their ordinances right now too, and it seems like they've got some great stuff forward thinking about how to do that. So just, other small coastal towns that are forward thinking, planning for future conditions, how to incorporate that into their ordinances. I think that would be really helpful to look at that as well.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll leave you alone now.
Well, I think Beaufort is, beautiful as it is. Of course, we do need to have some options to take a look at how we want to continue to keep on the aesthetic of what many of us call the Beaufortness of it all. I just wanted to add a few comments. I'm not going to, hopefully they might be a little bit in different direction. Everything you've heard from this excellent board here, definitely. Commissioner Oliver had mentioned the gateway study that we've done. And one of the things we really need to be able to do is the entrances into Beaufort and the exits. We need to have some form of a beautification or gateway that will allow for either trees to be planted or something that when people come in, they are not hit with, I don't know what, and then it opens up into something different. It needs to have that continuity. So you don't have that sticker shock when you first walk in, and then all of a sudden, you coming 3-4 blocks later, you see all these trees and everything looks pretty. It really gives a sense of division when people come into town, and I've heard that. They're like, well, if I go down this street, it looks disconnected from that street. So if we can do some kind of comprehensive so that the town looks cohesive and not disjointed, that would be great. When you go on your tour, I would love for you to go to the Housing Authority.
Okay.
And then there's some areas as well where we do have senior citizens that are living. Take a look at their conditions as well, because we have talked about how we wanted to be able to be more sensitive to those most vulnerable. You need to know where they are and their neighborhood that surround them. Some of them are in areas that flood pretty significantly. And Florence has taught us a big lesson. As I've gone door to door to those areas, I'm finding people that I've had to really wade through myself to get through to them, and to, whether they need oxygen or things of that nature, it's going to be a little tough getting to them. Affordability is always pretty interesting. We have a town where we have, people that have good fortune coming in, but there are also people that are still here whose fortune is very flat, but economy has risen. And so when we start talking about code enforcement, if I have a 90-year-old lady who is going to have a bunch of letters coming to her house because her grass is a little higher, is there any mechanism in there that we can help those individuals stay within compliance without having to make them feel like they need to be pushed out? It's a true story, and it's happened. I know we want to be able to put that enforcement in there, follow that letter, you need to do this, you need to do that, but some people need just a little bit extra time in order to get it together. But they may also need to have those resources, some suggestions of resources that might be able to help them get the property back in the shape that they even want to see them, the property be in. So that would be a good mechanism to say that we're looking at our whole community comprehensively. We've learned this in Florence. When that happened, it exposed a lot of people that were not resilient. Okay, and we want to be able to take those lessons that did not serve us and put things in that do. That's pretty much it for me in a nutshell for right about now. I'm just pretty sensitive about that. I love the sidewalk idea. Walking is great. Getting to services is very important. The doctors are uptown. We do have those. We have all the services for groceries, so on and so forth. But that comprehensive look, a gateway, mechanisms to help those who are not resilient to become resilient, and then to take a look at our areas that are most vulnerable. Okay?
You could solve all that.
Yeah.
Short period of time.
You've got 30 minutes.
We'll pay the
Give
bill.
us until Friday.
You have 30 whole minutes.
Kelly, anything else coming to mind for you? Okay. Okay, so as you can see here, the first three things on the first three bullet points are things we'll be doing essentially tomorrow. We've touched on those already. Our expectation is that we'll have an initial draft of the assessment in the August-September timeframe, and then we'd like to come back to bring that to the public in the September-October timeframe. So we'd like to be done with this. I'd like to be done with it in September, but something along those lines would be our goal. So we would expect to see you all again at the end of the summer.
Good luck.
Just
I
to
know
clarify, this is just phase one,
Correct.
right? So this is not the entire code update.
Oh my God, no.
Yeah,
That's
this
right.
is just phase one.
That's correct.
Okay.
Make sure
We
we
know
got
you're good, but
Yeah. Yes, that's right.
that's right.
We'd have to do some hiring. Okay.
Yes.
I think that was all we had. Yeah, and call her. Actually, I want to mention something about that. We've asked, just for sake of clarity, to run things through Michelle. You can always say, Michelle, I'd like to schedule a call with White and Smith. I mean, we're always available for that, or direct us in a different position, so I didn't want to imply that.
We'll
Okay.
follow the chain of command for right now.
Okay, thanks for your time.
All righty.
Thank you. Thank you.
Unless there's any further questions, Mr. Smith, Ms. Cusino? Cusino, all righty. I always like to make nice names really fancy. It's my second language skill. But we'd like to thank you for coming to do a wonderful presentation. You guys have come highly recommended, and you have delivered so far. Like you said, we've got a community at your disposal, so don't be too ashamed to ask for help. We're here to do just that. We've got a whole board here that will support and has good tennis shoes. And we have a podiatrist on staff, so John will take care of our feet.
Your feet.
All right. Unless there's any further questions, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, you got a motion on the floor. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All opposed, say nay. Have the same right? All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for coming. Thank you.